Okay, there's my camera. All right, let's start over. Happy Thursday. Welcome to day 4 of the Create Your Meal Planning System. I think I'm having internet issues. It's super slow and it keeps flashing, so I'm not sure what's going on. But today is day 4. We're talking about preparing your pantry. Okay, so day 1 was your schedule of cooking. 1 or 2 or 3 days a week, or getting it chopped up, and then you would cook it during the week, but getting it ready. Day 2 was, I forgot what day 2 was. Yesterday was about shopping. And day 2 was rotating your recipes. So that way you picked recipes that you liked and would cook and were not very difficult. You don't want to start with new recipes. And then you would just rotate them throughout the month. So take 3 a week. If you find 20 of them, there's a couple months worth of recipes right there that you can just rotate through. So yesterday was about grocery shopping. I did talk about the grocery gadget, and someone brought it to my attention that that's iPhone only. I did notice on Android there was one that was called Our Grocery Shopping List, I think it was. And that one, I couldn't see if it had any where you could list the price, so it kept a running tally of what you were spending, but it said you could rearrange the aisles and things like that to match your store. So I'll post that in the comments later. But today is all about getting your pantry ready. That is key for anything, really. That is something that in my 12-week program I focus on, not just for 1 week. It's kind of like something we go back to a lot, because there's a lot of things in people's pantries that they don't want to eat anymore, and so it's not always easy to get rid of that food. I mean, you can donate it and things, but cleaning out your pantry and getting it prepared for a healthier lifestyle is a little bit of work. It's great to clean out your pantry, and you can donate stuff you don't use. I do that every couple of years, just going through my pantry and just getting rid of stuff I've accumulated in there that I don't need anymore, like the 20 plastic water bottles that got shoved to the back somewhere. So, or up high, because mine, the shelves, and it's in the corner of my kitchen, so I need a step stool to get to the top shelf. So, but today let's talk more about your pantry, and see. Hey, Mel. All right, so preparing your pantry. Like I said, it's something that's important for anything that you're doing when it comes to your healthy lifestyle. I don't have anything in there. Let me correct that. I have a tiny little section for like when my kids come over, my grandson comes over, and it's all like their food that I don't really eat. But the rest of it, a lot of it, like half of one, because I have like the corner, like I said, so it's got 2 shelves that meet in the corner, and it's got like, I don't know, 5 shelves. Half of one shelf is all like just mason jars that I use for storage, like empty ones. And then I keep my dried beans in the big gallon mason jars. So a lot of my shelves are just mason jars. My big appliances have to go in there that don't fit in the cabinets, the tall ones, like my KitchenAid mixer, things like that go in there. My big KitchenAid food processor, that will, they'll fit in there. So I have like a few shelves. Half of the whole pantry, each shelf is just like appliances, because it's easier to keep them there and I can just reach them easier. Canned goods I do buy, because of the BPA. I don't buy a lot of canned goods, but there are some things in there that I do have canned, or just my extra, the condiments that like my husband uses and stuff like that. So, and then things that I probably don't really need in there that I have in there. So, but yeah, you want to get your pantry ready. So having a well-stocked kitchen is going to help you tremendously with your meal planning. no matter what meals you choose to make or whether you have time to grocery shop that week, there should always be some staple food items in your house because that's always something good to fall back on. We're going to talk about an emergency meal too tonight. But staple ingredients are going to be the ingredients you use the most often. Like these ingredients are used in multiple recipes. They store well in the pantry, the fridge, or the freezer, and can help you create your meals of choice that you pick each week. So these ingredients will be different for everyone, but some of them would be of a typical staple ingredient could be rice, quinoa. That's me. I have a lot of quinoa. Frozen chicken breast for people that eat that. Like my husband eats chicken, so I'll have frozen chicken breast for him. Frozen veggies because that's all we eat because they don't go bad and they're frozen right when they're fresh. So it's a win-win. Canned beans or things like that. Like I said, I don't have a lot of canned. I don't keep a lot of canned things in my pantry just because of the BPA in the cans. But I will buy a lot of the frozen veggies. But I have like almost every dried bean that there is, especially in the wintertime because I'll make stew. And I make my own refried beans. I haven't made any in a while. So I have pinto beans, I have red kidney beans, I have black beans, I have a couple of the white beans like navy beans, cannelli beans. I have my garbanzo or chickpeas because I make my own hummus. So I buy those like all the time. Because I soak them and then make my hummus, and I freeze the ones that I don't use, or once they're cooked, and then I thaw them out to make my hummus. So I have a lot of things on hand as my staples. You'll also want to include condiments, oils, and then herbs and spices too when you consider your staples. Like I have a lot of spices that I use because, like I said, I make a lot of stuff from scratch, so I'm always adding spices and things to it. Oils, I buy the big like 25, I don't even know how many gallons or what it is. It's like the tub that's this big on Amazon of coconut oil, and it'll last me at least a year or more. And I don't even remember. It costs like $25. I mean, it's like it lasts me a whole year. Because then I just put some into a smaller mason jar to use. That way I'm not lugging it out and every time I need it. Because we cook with that. We use stainless steel pots and pans because it's healthier for you. So we put the coconut oil in there. But that's also something, I know olive oil, I have avocado oil. And there's different oils that are healthier. You don't want to use like canola oil. You don't want to use vegetable oil because those are not healthy for you at all. Olive oil, I've heard, if you heat it up, it really isn't the best for you. It's made for colder like salads. You put on the dressing or something. But we have olive oil too because my husband will make oil and vinegar, and I make my own spices. And I mean, I don't make my spices, but I make my own dressing from spices. So, but having the different condiments and spices can help you change the same foods into different flavors as well. So this tip makes meal planning a lot less work because you only have to prepare a few ingredients for the week. Because you know that you can, put some seasoning on chicken, and then the next time you cook it, you can make it with different seasoning, and it totally tastes different. So it's almost like it's chicken, but it doesn't even taste like the same thing. So you're using the same meat, but making two completely different meals. So one more tip that I'd like to pass on is keeping an emergency meal in your freezer. This is something that you can heat up in a flash on those nights that you run out of time. Like you get home from work late or, just because you always have those kinds of days. This can keep you from ordering out or running through a drive-through. And you knowing you have it in there for whenever you need it will alleviate a lot of stress. I talked yesterday, I think it was yesterday, about I don't eat pasta because of the white flour and the white sugar. And I know they have healthier pastas now, like chickpea and stuff like that. But lasagna, I used to always make lasagna. And you can easily make that in like when you're going to give it to someone in one of those aluminum foil trays and just freeze it. And then once it's frozen or cools off, you can put it into Yeah, I would freeze it first and then put it into like Ziplocs or something, or make smaller ones, and that way you can put it in individual Ziplocs, and then you have like a smaller portion. You don't have to thaw out like the whole lasagna. But there's a lot of things you can do. Some people, um, anything that you cook, you can freeze that. So I do that with stew a lot. If I make a lot of chili and I make too much, then I'll just freeze it because my beans have already been cooked and frozen, but then I've cooked them in the chili so then I can refreeze it. So anything you can refreeze something as long as it's not and it's still the same form that it was frozen prior. But yeah, so you could do that. So if you cook extra, like when you're doing your batch cooking and you cook a lot and you cook a couple double recipes, just set a couple aside, one of each, and then you can freeze those, and then you're going to have it in there, and just like write the date on it so you know, because it'll stay good for a few months in there. But yeah, having something like that where all you have to do is pop it in the oven and heat it up, or even like that morning, if you're like, oh my gosh, I have nothing for dinner, you can take it out to thaw it out, and then it's already starting to thaw, and then you can still cook it in the oven. So take a look in your pantry, your fridge, and your freezer today, and make a list of the staples that you need to add to your grocery list. And we talked about that yesterday with the grocery shopping. So hopefully you looked at like a day that you'd want to go grocery shopping, so that way you kept it, you form your habit for that. And now you want to look at your pantry, your fridge, and your freezer and get the things that you know that are in most recipes. There's always usually going to be some kind of oil or even spices and herbs and things like that. So for today's challenge, you're going to look in, like I said, your pantry, your fridge, and your freezer, and make a list of the staples that you need to get at the grocery store. And they can start to be a little pricey. So if you know that you have to get a lot, you can stagger it out. Like if you shop with a budget like me, you could stagger it out and not buy them all at one time. Because I do that when I know that I have to buy like, the $20 big huge bag of dog food, and my husband's razors and things like that. I try and space those out so all of a sudden I'm not spending $100 on like 4 things. Like, when you go to Costco or Sam's and $500 later you're like, what did I buy? Just coffee, So you can always space them out too. And what you're going to do is choose an emergency meal to have on hand and add that to your shopping list. But I think one thing that's really good is if you're already going to be cooking and batch cooking and doing, like cooking some meals, set part of that aside or cook extra and set that aside and freeze it. And that can be an emergency meal for you. Yes, pantry clean out can be, a little tough for people. Yeah, I know. I buy stuff too I bought some spices and things, and all of a sudden I'm like, what did I buy it for? I know it was a recipe I saw in a cookbook, but I didn't write it down, and it's like, I don't even remember what recipe it was for. So yeah, I've done that too. But yeah, I'm going to start doing that where I like write down, this is the recipe that I bought it for. It was something, I don't know, saffron or I don't know, some weird spice I didn't even have. So it was weird. The quinoa, I go through it comes in a bag when I buy it at Walmart or the grocery store, then it just reseals. But yeah, you could easily keep those in like mason jars. And the rice, yes, especially because sometimes those things you don't cook as often, and you have all those little tiny like bugs that like to get into those foods. So mason jars. I also I just bought some Rubbermaid plastic pantry containers for like my almond flour. It's really tall. I'll have to take a picture and post them. It's tall and it's got a locking lid and it suctions on, so it like really keeps the bugs out of flour, because they can get in the flour a lot. So I did that for my almond flour, my coconut flour. I use nutritional yeast in the meatball recipe, so that's like a flour. My sugars, because I use coconut sugar, so I put that in one. So anything that was like loose, floury, powdery stuff that I use, I put that in there, because mason jars do still work. but these lids kind of suction out better and they clip on. So I just went with that just to try it for those. But yeah, the rest of the stuff in my pantry is like in mason jars. I have a lot of mason jars. So, cause yeah, when I make my homemade pasta sauce, I'll make it and I'll freeze it in like the 8-ounce pint pasta sauce jars, or the mason jars for my husband, and he'll just take one out, thaw it out, and then So I do freeze in those too. As long as I don't drop it on my tile floor and break it like I've done recently. So, but I did buy plastic containers just to freeze. I don't heat them up. I don't use plastic other than that, but because I broke a couple mason jars. Or sometimes they crack in the freezer. I bought like those to-go soup little bowl thingies, like containers with the lid, and I just freeze in those, and that's it. I just reuse them for that. I don't even like eat in them or heat them or anything like that. Because there's toxins that come off of that, so that's for another live. So take a look and see what staples that you might need. Hopefully most of us already know, but if you're going to start cooking more, you may need some of these staples that you may have not used, because if you're buying already like pre-packaged foods and things, you don't need ingredients for it. So that was one thing I learned when I was started cooking more was, oh, I need this, I need this, I need this. So yeah, I have a lot of that stuff. But like I said, you can buy that over time. Like you don't have to buy it all at one time, because that could be your whole like weekly food budget right there just to get your staples. So, because I know olive oil is like, you can get the big one. It's like, I don't know, $15 sometimes depending. So, but yeah, so check that out. And also when you're making start your batch cooking, or like when you're prepping your food, make extra, and have a frozen, freeze one of them. If you make it a double the recipe, freeze half. And then that way you have your emergency meal, or even if you don't need it for emergency meal, you've already got it made. All you got to do is thaw it out, heat it up. So you don't even have to cook. So, but that's it. And then tomorrow, oops, not that mouse. Let me look and see. Tomorrow is our last day. And my computer wants to go like way slow. All right, so tomorrow we're talking about, I can't believe it's day 5. Oh, themes. It's going to be theme nights. So yeah, that's going to be a cool one. So anyone who signed up for put their email in and signed up, I'm going to be sending you a really cool handout that's got like suggestions for theme nights. So yeah, I'll be sending you one, Mel, and anyone else who signs up for that. Okay. So, theme night, and then I'll recap everything, and then that'll be it. So if you have questions, let me know. As usual, yeah, I'll answer. I don't go back to school, my work, until July 12th, which happens to be my birthday. So I never really have to go to work on my birthday when I teach. But this year I'm switching schools, so I have to start a little earlier for training. So, but yeah, so I'm off for the next 11 days. So yeah, guys, and even when I'm at work and I see messages or whatever, I answer when I can. So just let me know if you have any questions, and I will see you all tomorrow. I'm glad you had fun, Mel. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Have a good evening.